All right, another football video that was put off for way too long, but I like to think that the time I spent will help sharpen the format. So, in the previous past, I just did these videos, Auburn against S opponent, where I just talked about, pretty much rambled about random articles. But this time, I'm going to put into the format of three factors that could help each team win, and then finish off with a prediction. And I'll try to go, Auburn, A&M, A&M, Auburn, vice versa. So starting off, we have the ESPN page introducing the time, date, well, not time, but date, the 21st. So this will be our fourth game of the season, coming off of the Kansas State and Tulane cupcake games, and this will be our first road game of the season. And accordingly, ESPN has us predicted to lose by a handed amount. I believe that ATM is a fan favorite to be a dark horse this year. They came very close to being what I'd say 11-1, something like that last year. Something around that area. Alabama's the only game I know they got blown out of, and they pretty much, I would say they returned their core because, as we'll find out later, they lost some pretty key pieces that make up a Fisher offense. But they still have enough guys coming in and a pretty good recruiting class to make you think that they could at least be third in the West, if not higher. And seeing as how they did LSU last year, they could be second. So going off of that, I think the first factor that will help ATM, Texas A&M, win this game will be the home factor. If you're not familiar, the previous, well, before last year, previously, every single game in this series since ATM came to the SEC was decided by the road team winning ultimately. And some classes, of course, 2013, Johnny Manziel being sacked on, I believe it was third and fourth down. I think they had D4 both times. I know D4 the fourth down, but maybe both times. And then, I mean, the year behind that, I wouldn't call it a classic, but it was certainly a game that made you know Gene Chizik was coming back when Manziel and company came to town and beat Auburn by 42. And they probably had about, I believe it was 55, 56, something like that at halftime. So they could have easily won by 100 if they wanted to. I don't think we stopped them a single time on one drive in the first half. So yeah, that was a pretty bad one. And of course, last year's comeback, come behind victory, where I believe it was Auburn's only second ranked win and the first one since the first game of the season, which was in I believe early September, like literally very beginning of September. That was our last ranked win before that one, and we pulled it out, uh, down 14, 24 to 14, down 10 in the fourth quarter to come back and win. So speaking of all that, we have the current win streak, the first win streak that's more than one, as I said before. And I just think, it's a hard place to play in. Um, I forgot what they call their home stadium, honestly. It's on the tip of my tongue, but their base, the 12th man, it's always apparent. Um, the towels, the it's a huge stadium. It's at least 101 plus, 101,000 plus if you can get that. The male cheerleaders, of course, that's very distracting. And it's really, they've handled it well. So it's kind of hard for me to say, like, it's the hardest stadium to play in just because of the size or anything like that. I think their fans come out very well, but Auburn just seems to have a knack to play in there. I don't know if we've ever played a night game there. If I'm trying to think right now, 2013 was a day game. 2015 might have been a night game. I think it was a night game. 2017 was a day game. That was a wash. I don't really remember that one too well, but that was a pretty much of a wash one. And I would presume that it makes sense for this to be game of the week, although I don't know what else is coming on in week 4. but I would assume that'd be game of the week. So probably another daytime game. Um, I'll segue that into our next factor, that is for Auburn, how they could come out and get ahead in this game, and that'd be via the running game. If you go over to the statistics from our previous matchup, over here. So you can go down here and you can see that Auburn amassed a cool 19 yards, 21 rushing attempts, 19 yards, and one touchdown. Now, it's been a minute since I looked at the statistic of how incredulous this victory was. But last time I checked, I believe it was one of Auburn's first games. It was something crazy. It was one of Auburn's first wins while having such a pitiful amount of rushing yards, like less than 20. It was one of their first ones in the Gus era, I believe, at the very least. And it it was at a time where a lot of people felt like the offensive line was getting better, or at least they were decent. But Booby was hurt at this point. Stidham was in shell shock mode for quite a while at this point. Shorts, as you can see, the speed sweep didn't work. Shivers, I don't know. I don't understand why Shivers didn't get more touches. And once they started using Malik Miller and Chandler Cox, you can kind of tell that they were just throwing anything out. Malik Miller was the best pass protection back they had, so I would assume he came in and ran just for the sake of running, just to respect him, but used more in the pass protection sense. And it was really hard to watch because until the fourth quarter, Gustin run paced the offense. So they were running like their base set where like they pretty much just come out and, you know, try to throw a couple of gimmick passes and then try to force the run. And in doing so, it just looked ugly. Like they looked disjointed the entire first three quarters. 8 punts total. That's just bad. Like, and for an offense that, while ATM did score quite a bit of points, they were a pace offense too. So for them to have it being a pace offense and getting the ball back 8 times themselves, uh, that's demoralizing, really. And as somebody who attended that game, understand that it was quite demoralizing. But I had to say this. Um, I think the running game is going to be a necessity, not just in this game, but in the Oregon game and maybe a couple games after, depending on who starts. Because, with two freshman quarterbacks, you have to bail them out sometimes. And even though ATM's run defense is, let's see if I have it pulled up here somewhere, incredible. It was phenomenal last year. Only gave up 95.2 rushing yards defensively, 3.2 YPC, and only 1.1 touchdowns. That's phenomenal, to be completely frank with you. And I mean, it means a lot, but I'm sure there's games you can go through and find instances where they gave up quite a bit. Um, Off the top of my head, the Clemson game, I think Kelly Bryant had their most rushing yards, but I think the team had about over 100, I want to say. Out from the Alabama game, they probably just played pitch and catch, which that's for down the road later. But you know, you had to attack one side of their defense, and it's very evident which side was weaker than the other one. Um, but I think we're more well equipped, I want to say, to play against what they have to show. When you look at the roster, I think the offensive line should be substantially better. I think that's just a given, really. And I don't think they were actually that bad pass blocking in this game, but run blocking definitely. I think the edges would be a lot cleaner. I don't think I think Seth's a decent run blocker, but I think Nate Craig Myers was their best one, and hopefully we find some more diversity amongst the roster at that with that talent. Um, I think Cedric Jackson's supposed to be pretty good at that. I believe he got some burn in some of these later games, and maybe Matthew Hill could develop some of the bigger guys like Zach Ferrari, maybe, and Justin. I mean, not Justin. Tartavia should be healthy. That's the biggest thing right there. It's just him being healthy. DJ Williams, he's a big guy that's shifty when it comes to cuts and knowing good vision, as Booby is too. Hopefully those two get some touches because they'll be perfect in a matchup like this against a big athletic front seven such as ATM. That's very I don't want to say small in the corners, but I mean it's obviously the point is to be picked on. And I think if Joey starts, I believe there'll be a lot of inside out action. There'll be a lot of buck sweeps with Shivers and maybe Cam Martin, with the edges being the tackles being better, and the receivers hopefully being better, and then more halfback tight end usage, not just shifting guys around, but actually like tight ends. Um, Cam Martin can be used well in a north-south role where he just gets the ball, the hole is there, he can just run. That's his thing, and that should help him be a contribution in this game. I think they'll keep him honest. Even if Joey is starting, I think they'll still keep him honest with the deep ball because that was enough there. The medium to deep will probably decide this game as well, but that's not one of my factors. Anyway, going back to Texas A&M and kind of piggybacking off what we just went to, the front seven. If you look at some of their better players they have being preseason, all SEC type of guys, they have a punter, first team pick. They have this guy right here. Where's this Corbin character at? Jashawn Corbin. I believe that's a punt return, so that's not too much of a factor. But this guy right here, defensive tackle Mata Buke, junior, he appeared in all 13 games for the Aggies. 10.5 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks, 5 QB hurries, 10 tackles, 7 solo tackles in a half seconds. LSU. That's that's pretty incredible defensive MVP for them. And then if you go to the front seven, like I said, gave up 95 yards per. And then let's try to find their sacks. Okay, so you see quite a few sacks across the board there. They don't for some reason they didn't like add this up, so it kind of makes it a little bit harder than I thought it would be. But yeah, it'd be nice. It's probably an advanced statistic thing. I'm not finding it right now. But you got the guy 4 sacks, 7.5 sacks, 7 sacks, 5.5 sacks. Pretty guys are a pretty high amount. Let's see if these individuals are returning for this game. Matabuke, we already know about him. Dalen Mack. I feel like I've heard that name before. Of course, I mean, ATM always keeps like defensive edges. Um, Von Miller, a couple other guys that came in between him and now, but they always do their thing as far as that goes. So 2018, so he should be out of here, it seems. He was a senior last year, so he should be gone. Let's see who else we got here. This guy's a senior too, so he should be gone. Senior should be going. Dalen Mack, senior should be gone. Okay, well, it would appear that out of their top 5 sack leaders, that 4 of the 5 are gone. So that should make it quite a bit easier for Auburn, I would think, in running, and quite a bit harder for A&M to stop Auburn. Because if you remember, they blew that game open. We did via the pass, especially the up tempo short pass, and progressively going to medium, and then the 20, I think 15 to about 25 yard area is where they just started teeing off on AT&M. AT&M. I'm trying to Texas A&M. Let's just say that Texas A&M. Darius Slayton having 107 yards, Brian Davis 75, Seth 22. A lot of these yards are made up in that fourth quarter, and pretty much in that range I was describing as far as yardage goes. And a big part of what's going to help ATM is that they should be. I don't want to. They should be more proficient scoring wise, just because of natural development things like that. Um, they're gonna be less run dependent, so it could be more boomer bust. And like I said, a big part of Fisher's offense is pretty much like I'd say two running backs that could both be starters on most teams. Um, and also a tight end. The tight end is a big part of him. He had the guy 2013, I think his name is Ryan Green, that balled on Auburn back then. And not having Travion or Jace, it's going to be more Kellen Mond. And I guess I'll go ahead and transition to my third part. Can Kellen handle the pressure better? As we saw in that article, they lost their leading center to I would presume the just natural eligibility. And if you look at their stats, a big reason why they became so much better between this year and the previous year is that they became more accurate, definitely. Um, but they became more dominant on the rushing the ground. Travion and who else they had in 2017, they were great running backs, but it's almost a 60-yard difference here, which is pretty big, almost a whole yard and a half, almost a whole yard and a half average. And the running game or passing game, while it didn't become like big difference yard wise, you know percentages got a little bit better. Touchdowns came up a little bit, and then for Kellen Mond, who one way or the other needed to be the face of the future, Starkle, put up good numbers, decent touchdown int ratio, all the things look nice. Kellen Mond need to be developed for the future, need to be groomed for the future. And a lot of times in games, he just looked completely raw. He had a cannon and he could run. The rest of the in betweens, it wasn't developed. The Alabama game is a big example of that. And I think Fisher did a good job of turning him into a legitimate, like I won't say NFL prospect per se, but he's close to where he needs to be at. 3,100. He fine tuned his throw in the run attribute, I would say. He made him more of a weapon on the run instead of just a guy that just either runs or has to throw it. He can't really throw in the middle because he just isn't that accurate. Starkle's, I think I would assume that Starkle only played like Michael Dooley for the most part, but his numbers came up a little bit. And yeah, I think what failed them in our game last year is that they wasn't very able to, I don't want to say run, but they just, like, if you look at this right here, let's go back to the box score. I believe it was about 6 sacks we got on them and about 12 tackles for loss. Let's see, I believe I'm somewhere close in that area down here. 5 tackles, 5 sacks, and then 12 tackles for loss with quarterback hurries, 6 quarterback hurries. And I believe we forced 2 fumbles, or 3 fumbles from Kellen and 2 that were lost. Yeah, right here. It was a game where Kellen, especially the fourth quarter, he wasn't seeing the whole field, pressured constantly, pretty much scrambled the second he had the chance to. And while he didn't get that many numbers up, he had to scramble, I suppose, for like just to get, just to make any possible play happen. Um, Very good day by the edge rushers containing him. A lot of his best plays running, as I remember, up the middle, which same thing happened with Nick Fitzgerald in the Mississippi State game. And I was assuming that the read option played out pretty similarly in that respect in this game because Trayvon Williams had a monster game. I believe the reason that we really kept it as close as we did, as long as we did, because they stopped feeding Travion in the second half as much as they did, because he had a pretty dominant first half, as I remember. And if you look at his touches, like this, if you're getting 6.3 YPC, you should be getting like a lot more than 17 carries. Um, I believe he got very few carries. Maybe that's because they saw something in Kellen throwing the ball. Kellen did have a pretty healthy day throwing the ball, but 32 attempts against what a down year, it's still a pretty elite front seven. I don't think that's very smart. But I just think Kellen had a bad day reading the defense, knowing what he's supposed to do at the right time. Um, Way too many just errant throws, and he wasn't seeing the whole field, like I said. So I think that's a big part of what will help ATM win. Reading Kellen being able to read the field, read the pressure better. He'll have to take a lot more duties than he did last year with Travion gone, obviously. That front seven be able to rebound and contribute a lot more in terms of stopping our run game and in the home factor. For me, my last two, I guess, kind of run together. I think the up tempo, what we ran in that, it killed their front seven. I showed you how good theirs were, and I think once we started running hurry up no huddle, Stidham looked better. Stidham said a whole year that he loved running hurry up no huddle. That's what he's used to. So we expected to be running while he came here. We very rarely did, but he excelled in it. Getting the ball out of his fat hands quick, get the ball out of his hands fast to Ryan Davis, especially. A couple of outside throws of Slayton that set up Slayton's confidence because Slayton had a one big drop, but then made it like a big catch the Nets play, as I remember. And then they try to be diverse, use the running backs a couple times, use Canella on I think it's a double reverse to Ryan Davis, and they really sparked it up when they needed to. That was a very productive fourth quarter, and the hurt him no huddle, not just in this game, but in many other games. It's going to make a couple of these games a lot easier than we've allowed them to be in the past. And I think having Bo Nitz or Gatewood, I suppose supposed to be Bo Nitz at this very moment, having Bo Nitz where he's very good with the short passes, very accurate, very precise. He's also fast enough to get a couple of yards scrambling. Because what makes those drives happen that ends up being 3, 4, 5 yard plays consecutively is can you get a gain on the previous play? And it doesn't have to be a big gain. It could be 3, 4 yards, like alluded to, but it just has to be a gain. He really doesn't run a hurry no huddle off of a 1 0 yard, stone wall type of run or just an incomplete pass. So just make something happen every play is going to have to be a big part of what makes the hurry up happen. And Stidham, for all of his faults, he could swing the ball out fast enough, get it when he wanted to in the right places short, keep the drive going. So I think that'll be a big part of what helps us if Gus is willing to go hurry no huddle, willing to go adopt that strategy from the jump, and just make it an uncomfortable game from them initially, because that's what we need. We need to make them feel uncomfortable from the jump. I don't think we did that enough in any games really last season, but who knows? If I had to predict this game right now, I think it's going to be the one game I feel like that we don't win because of youth factors. I think Oregon has their own youth problems where it kind of offsets, but I think this is a game where you have a more experienced ATM team that while they had lost quite a bit, they have some age, and I think they're a step forward in their I don't want to say that we're in a rebuilding process because we do have a lot of like age on our own team, and Gus has been for 6 years or however long. But I feel like we're trying to reset a culture here, and Fisher's already in the second year installing his culture, so it's something to consider. Um, but I think there's going to be some youth problems in the quarterback position for this game on the road against what is or has been a pretty stout front seven. And then, this is like Fisher, I don't think he's has the chops that he's linked up to have as far as being a coach, elite coach anyway. But he does come correct when he needs to. And this is going to be a game that's integral if he wants to really make it a title type of year. Clemson will be 2 weeks earlier, and Alabama should be 2 weeks later. this is really a game you can't afford to drop. You can lose Clemson, you can lose Alabama, but you lose Auburn and the season's already over with. So that's something he's probably going to have considering. I think for us, this is if you beat Oregon, you lose this game, it's fine. You lose both, it's kind of still fine, but you don't want to lose both. I think we could win this game. I think we probably should win this game based on what we return and what they are losing and what helped us out in the previous game, but who knows? I'm gonna go A&M 26, Auburn 20. I think that we'll be running two quarterbacks in this game, trying to figure out a couple of different things. I think it'll be a bounce back after this game, but for the moment, I think it's going to be too tough environment. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I'll try to link another video towards the end of this video, and just you can go peep that previous prediction. Enjoy your last couple of weeks before football starts, and War Eagle.